SwainBot reporting. This week we have Last Guardian standing. We talk about pulse rifles, and charming guest unit Fallout plays.
Bones, you've done it. I knew it was worth replacing Swain with a robot.
You know, life is so much easier now. I feel great about this decision.
SwainBot, do my taxes.
Yes, birds.
SwainBot, get me a girlfriend.
No, does not compute.
All right, hold on. That's not what I made it say. Wait, go to the music and I'll fix this while we're on break.
I have limitations. I'm not a miracle worker. Go outside.
Shadow clock, so won't let me die on my throne. Don't let me die on my throne.
Hello, birds. This is Bones talking. How are you?
Hello, Bones. I am Birds. This is me, as always, making these noises. And now I'm going to greet my friend Swain. Swain, how are you doing?
Hello, I am Swain. Thank you, birds, for the introduction. Buds, how are you?
I'm scared. Swain is a robot now.
Yeah. I was going to mention that earlier, but I figured we'd hash it out in the show. He got the exo treatment. He's like Cade now.
It's all to improve my sniping.
We actually digitally add Swain's voice. He's a character of our own design. You know, he does not exist, actually. And we've actually only thrown him in there thinking, you know what, we needed a third co-host. It's just sort of awkward with the two of us. So we invented Swain. And Swain, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Don't do that the whole episode.
Oh, man, what a week. This was, I've got to say, definitely an eventful week, an exciting week. It had ups, it had downs, high points, trials, tribulation, and also trials.
Nice.
How'd you guys feel this week? Swain, what was your week in Destiny like?
I've had a great week in Destiny. I would say it kind of all just started off with trials. We did a few runs. We did the Extra Life stream on Sunday morning. That was
fun.
That was so much fun. They reached their goal, which was awesome. We had some fun doing that. We actually went flawless on stream, the three of us, and then
always nice.
Me and Bones proceeded to continue after that, and we didn't use a single mercy, even though I forgot my boons on my alt.
Yeah, we still got there.
Yeah, we still got there, and then we finished up 3 rounds with Birds to finish off his gold tier, and we won those 3 too. So it was a pretty good morning on Sunday. Other than that, not too much. Just doing some streaming. Getting some rumbles in, being a rumble pony.
Rumble pony. Man, that trials match was just what I needed. You know, I just got shook on Bannerfall. I was not in the trials mindset. I wasn't ready for it, and I didn't feel good about my sniping. And it was great playing Exodus Blue with you guys. And I know you guys are both sniping, but that's a map that really needs a shotgunner. And it's like, oh, well, you've got either side of this crate he's hiding behind pinned down. Let me jump over the top of that. This is going to be fun. And just getting kills, getting some doubles, getting, feeling like, all right, I'm doing it. Like, this is how it's supposed to feel. And strangely enough, I think that helped me kind of get my sniping groove back. I've been, you guys have said it, and it's definitely true. With sniping, you kind of just have to go for it. You have to put yourself in those situations and just try and make the shots. And over time, you start to get them. And I think just a good trials ticket was enough to give me the confidence to get into it. And I've been having some great skirmish games this week. Just making those snipes happen and using the last word where you really have to rely on your sniper for everything outside of close range. Bones, what about you?
I actually have a little announcement that occurred this past week.
Ooh.
I am proud to say that I have joined Team Inclement.
Yeah!
Nice.
Team Inclement.
Team Inclement of Destiny fame. These guys are so intense. They are so good, and they are so awesome for the community. They have a combined, I don't even know, hundreds of trials carries. And I am so stoked to get to play with them a little bit more and improve my game. Obviously, my game has gone up a little bit enough to be recognized, but I'm really stoked to just, immerse myself with those guys because they just, they've solved whatever Destiny is. And they know how to do it. So I'm very stoked. I had a great weekend in trials. I felt like I discovered something and that is that I am addicted to being the last man standing.
Well, I'm always happy to help put you in that situation when we're on the same team. I don't like to do it, but I know how much you enjoy it, so I'll give you those opportunities.
Well, if you guys want to talk about that, let's kick off this episode of Crucible Radio, the show for all things PvP.
Destiny PvP.
Destiny
All
PvP.
things PvP.
The PvP.
Let me just say right now, if you're listening to us on iTunes, you're watching us on YouTube, do yourself a favor and go to reddit.com/ourcrucibleplaybook. So much of what we talk about the show is covered there. In particular, this Last Guardian Standing thing took the form of an awesome guide by our own resident Bonesy, and you really should go check it out. We'll put links into the show notes. It's so worth the read, but I read it, I felt like I learned something, but I want to hear you talk me through this crazy situation of being 3v1 and the pressure is on.
Well, first of all, thank you for that, and I'd be happy to. I've really found that I enjoy it, not because it's going well for the game or it means I get to go hero mode, but I realize there is nothing in Destiny that gives me the kind of adrenaline rush that Last Man Standing does. I have definitely lost quite a few of them, especially this weekend, but there is still that thought that I get where I'm just like, wow, what if I did it? What if I pulled it off? What if I was the last one alive on my team and I fought all three of them? And something in me just kind of clicked where I wanted it. And I started really thinking about it and figuring out the many steps that need to go into winning, because it's very doable. So I thought about it and I thought, how can I express this? How can I teach this to other people? And I realized it kind of falls into one major topic, and I'll expand out from there. But the major topic is positioning and movement. We've talked in this show about setups, about not rushing in, about running away, but the key to surviving a 1v3, or at least giving yourself a fighting chance, is to first of all know the map like the back of your hand, so that if you do need to turn, you are not running into a wall or shade stepping into a box and therefore not getting behind something. You need to have every inch of that thing memorized, because if you don't, the other team will know it better than you, and they will know exactly where you're going. And then the second thing is backing up, running away, and escaping, but not too far. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But what you want to do when you're backing up and you're running away is to put the entire enemy team in front of you. And when I say that, I don't mean see all three of them, because you don't want to see all three of them, because that's bad. You will lose that gunfight. But you want to know exactly where they are, and you want them together, because if they are spread across the map and one has a chance to flank, there's no way they're in front of you. You can't, on your screen, face the entire team, which puts you at a huge disadvantage of turning left and right. So you want to, when you are ready to engage 1v3, have everyone in front of you, at least to some extent. Is that sort of making sense?
Yeah, it does. I feel like when I'm playing, skirmish and both of my teammates are down, I'll say, all right, it's time to do this. And I'll try and fight the battle from where I currently am, because, hey, I know where the other guys are. And as long as they come out one at a time, sort of kung fu movie style, I'm okay. But as soon as I see both of them at the same time, it's like, all right, I'm definitely going to get one kill, but just the odds are against me. Someone's going to pull the sniper out and nab me while I'm engaging with someone else.
I found this situation a little bit in just regular Crucible play when you are, someone's chasing you. It's one of those occasions where, all right, someone's chasing me, they want the kill, they've got the bloodlust like we talk about, and I get far enough ahead that I can stop and turn around. I'm trying to pull them through the choke point. I think this is kind of part of what you're talking about, pulling them into a choke point, and I know that all right, he's gonna come this way, he's chasing me, I can stop. I know I got enough time to set my ground and get my sniper out.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You're actually pulling them with you. You want them to pursue at least a little bit. So let's put it in terms of Exodus Blue, which was last weekend's Trials map. There was a few situations where people were down by the inside spawn, down the stairs that lead up to the top of the tube. You know what I'm talking about. And there's that back entrance to the B flag. And there's a nice little choke point where there's a little special ammo crate. There's an underground path and a skinny path by the train. And this leads over to the other spawn. And in this choke point, I was getting chased. And I knew this was their most direct path to me, is through that train. What I don't want to do when I'm running back to my spawn over by the C flag is sprint so far away that they don't know where I am. And like, you know, I could have easily run all the way to that flag and just sort of waited. But what happens when I'm there is I've given them so much time to think and say, oh, he's running over there, that now they're going to say, well, I'll go this way. And they've got all this time to talk and explain what I'm doing. You know, maybe one of them is dead and even saw me, and now they've got the res. And he's like, yeah, okay, he ran over to the flag. If I stay by the end of that choke point, by those boxes by the C-spawn, I'm still on their radar, and they're going, he's right there. And you're capitalizing off of that urge, which is the bane of so many Destiny players, that like, radar, that means a kill. I can go get the kill. Especially if they think they have this massive advantage of, well, there's 3 of us and 1 of him, so let's go get him. But I know they're going to sprint through this choke point, and I know that is so wide that 2 Guardians can't stand next to each other and shoot me. So I've got a chance to take one of them out, and that's the next major thing, is creating 1v1 engagements during this entire battle. So I've brought them into one spot where I'm like, I can train my sniper scope right here. I haven't run all the way. I'm on their radar. They want to kill me right now, and he's going to come flying around this corner, and then you blast their head off.
You mentioned your sniper, and I'm sure you could probably make this work with a lot of different guns, but I know with your play style, that sniper rifle is such a key component of it. That's the great equalizer that gives you a chance against 3 different opponents.
Mm-hmm. To a certain extent, you just have to be confident in your gunplay. You have to know that I've got a sniper rifle, but I can use it from 15 meters out if I need to. Over time, you get a sense of that. You know exactly where head level is. Use your short gaze scope and, you know, look at the 9 straight across. Just know to put it right on head level. And then those close snipes become easier and easier. But especially on something like Exodus Blue, maybe it's a different story for Bannerfall, but you know, you're not going to have those long sight lines for them to approach you where you can get those nice, safe snipes. It just won't happen. So yeah, I mean, this relies heavily on your special weapons, but you got to use everything in your arsenal. You've got to use your grenades. You've got to space them out. You got to throw things in their way, put down a trip mine in that hallway, you know, tag them with the arc bolt so they think about it a little bit instead of just rushing out. If you've got it, you've got to use it. And like you said, the special weapons are the best way to do that. So I know that in order for me to really make a play against 3 players, I've got to use my sniper. That's just what I have to do.
I know I want to give you credit for all those great videos you have in this guide, but there is one video that was in the moment of the week this week, and it was a Guardian that was loaded into a Trials of Osiris match 3v1 from the very start. And this kind of seems like your ideal situation, Bones.
Maybe
you don't even
find
need
a way to
just load in with one person.
Yeah. There's got to be an exploit there.
But this guy used everything in his arsenal to get it done. He was body shot with his sniper and cleaning up with his primary. He was laying down trip mines where like choke points were. He really used everything at his disposal.
Well, and because that guy is constantly fighting a 3v1 or a 1v3 on his side, he's got to make those 1v1 engagements. And I say that as if it's a perfect world where they'll fight you one at a time, like this is some sort of bad fight movie where one guy runs over and gets punched and the rest of the guys stand in an aggressive circle waiting for their shot. And,
aggressive circle.
Yeah, and a good team won't let that happen. So that's where the positioning comes back, and that's where knowing the map exactly comes back in, because I can know that 2 guys are coming in this room, but if I shift to my left around a pillar, I only see one of them, and one of them's got to move around for him to get an angle. If I wait out in the open, sure, no problem. They walk in and know exactly where I am. But if I'm looking in one door, I want to make sure that I've got a wall to my left or right or something in my way so that someone coming from a slightly different angle does not know I'm there. And then for that second, I have a one-on-one engagement because the guy blocked by the box has nothing he can do. He might throw a grenade, in which case I got to get out of there. But for that second, I can stop, I can look, I can maybe get a grenade down there, I can snipe. Then I'm allowed to shift and focus attention on one player. So again, this implies that you're getting kills quickly and these aren't long primary kills. These are snipes and shotguns. You've got to use them. But it's very doable to just sort of say, like, you know what? I'll deal with you in a second, but I'm going to zero in on this one kill. And if you're not focusing on one at a time, there's just no way.
There was one user on Reddit, M Cursive, who summed it up so well. He said, "Bravo, I've been trying to tell people, find your Alamo." And when it comes down to like mantras, sports psychologist Steve talked about having a mantra. I think that one sums up so much of this. You're going to have to fight these people, but you can fight them on your own terms. So the map, decide where you want that spot to be, and force them to play your game. Don't play their game.
Speaking of sports psychologist, Steve, there is a very mental side to a Last Guardian Standing win. It's almost demoralizing to get wiped by one player. So like I feel like that's using everything at your advantage and making it happen just gets you on another level. It gets you inside their head, gets them thinking that like, oh crap, 3 of us is not good enough to take down that one guy. Maybe we aren't so good against a full fire team here.
Yeah.
I had a great Last Guardian Standing this weekend where I used Landfall during a heavy round and knocked out the last guy, and it was just like, whoo, like it felt great, but it was also like I needed it to use that at my disposal. If I saved it for the next round and I just let that guy wipe me with a machine gun or tried to challenge him with my primary, I probably would have lost, and we would have went into the next round kind of, all right, well, it's 3-3, we're doing all right. But it was nice to get that nice wipe, and I'm sure they were like, oh crap, we lost to one guy.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, there's this world where you can say, I'll save my Stormcaller for the very end because we're going to need some supers, but you got to make it happen when it needs to happen. Again, with the positioning and with map knowledge, there's something about Destiny maps where all of them can sort of be played in a circle. And you see this a lot with spawn flips, with rat lanes, with, just running from control point to control point. But all of the maps have a circular motion to them. And all of the maps, most of the maps, have some sort of central path that cuts it in two. And a really common problem is they think, well, let's use this shortcut because I need to get to a revive as soon as possible because I don't want to have all this weight on my shoulders. And that is just the quickest way to get pinched. So when I'm saying keep them all on your screen, you want all 3 players following you, or you want one guy trying to guard bodies and 2 follow you at one time, move in that circle and use all of that map distance to your advantage. The biggest thing that people freak out with when they are the last one alive is just wanting someone there with them. So there is this panic res effort where they run, they stand there, they hold square for a second, and by that time 2 players have jumped on their heads and are shotgunning both guys. Even if you got one up, he's just sort of flailing with a melee and it's not doing anything, and that didn't help your team at all. So don't be scared to move consistently away from your teammates. That's the hardest part, is being like, they're over there and I'm truly on my own. But if you're pulling them around a circle, so let's use Black Shield for example. Say you've got 2 of your teammates are dead over by the C flag, and you're running outside towards B where there's the big open circle. And they say, hey, I'll guard bodies. You guys go get them. You've got 2 guys following you outside. You can take the shortcut through that central tunnel and go inside at Black Shield. You're that much closer to your teammates. You're hoping maybe there's one guy I can fight. Maybe I can sneak by him somehow. Maybe he ran away. But if he's smart, he sits on those bodies. He sees you on your radar because you're much closer to him, and he waits for you to open the door. And in that time, the 2 guys saw you run into the middle hallway. They follow you in, and then they communicate with their team, and they say, yeah, he's inside. We're going to pinch him. Instead, what you can do is say, run over to the caves by A. Now that guy guarding bodies, he's got no clue what you're doing. He can't see on your radar. He can't tell his teammates what to do. He's useless. He can't make callouts. He might get jumpy and kind of follow. He doesn't want to sit back. And now you've got 2 guys that are coming straight at you, and they're all in this straight line. Or if they do flank, you kill one because you've made that 1v1 encounter. So using the map size to your advantage and keeping them following you in this long straight line is the best way to do it. You don't want to cut yourself off And using those shortcut lanes can just do it so quickly. And it feels, it's scary to be so far away from dead bodies. I know it really is, but it's the best way to do it.
So there's this one other perk to using kind of that outermost lap around a map. Part of this is because you're using your sniper so much, is that if you stick to sort of that outer lap around the outside of the map, you're going to pass by so many special ammo crates. And if you happen to run dry, you can just push a little bit farther around, pick up that lap, get away from them, and you've got a fresh ammo crate waiting for you there. And then you can choose a new engagement. When I saw you do that, I was like, oh my God, he's running away. He's running away from the bodies. They're going to come after him. And it was just far enough to get a little more special to keep the battle going. And something clicked for me right there. Definitely something to it.
Yeah, and then that, like I said, can be the difference. My sniper is absolutely my number one tool in trials. And if I don't have sniper ammos, I will not try to fight 3 people. I will run away until I get it. And then once you get it and you're ready, plant your feet, turn around, and wait for that first guy to follow you, because they're getting all greedy going, we've got this. All we got to do is finish him off. And you get 1 kill, they start panicking, like, wait, crap, I died. Someone else go get him. Or they now consider leaving the bodies, and they're like, do we have to go to like double team him and things like that? It's just you get that first kill and you have the game in your hands if you want it to be in your hands. That kind of all leads up to the last 2 parts. One is about this tricky word right now called reviving. It's true that in trials this year, it's fast. It's important to do, and it's very, very crucial to guard your first kill. But when you're last man standing, it becomes a way different priority. And I've already pointed out a scenario that I know every player in Destiny has experienced, which is someone rezzing them while 2 people are right behind them and they get rezzed only to die. It happens all the time. But with last man standing, you've really got to think about when it's worth it or not. And they have every ability as a team to stop and say, you know what, they are not getting these revives. And that is when you have to realize, like, you're right, I'm not winning unless I kill them. This isn't going to be a thing where I have some incredible comeback because I got sick reses. You know, I've got to do it. And that kind of falls into the last thing about playing 1v3, which is the part I can't teach you, which is about being clutch.
What is clutch?
Clutch is when you've learned everything, you've practiced everything, you've been in a scenario, you've had someone tell you what to do, you've tried and tried and tried, your loadout is perfect, you love your sniper, but when you're clutch, you've got to do something that just comes from inside of you. It is something that just happens when the elite players rise to the occasion. So I'm going to do a sports analogy, and Birds is going to be lost here.
Oh, I'm going to try. I really am.
Eli Manning is a quarterback for the Giants who has multiple Super Bowl rings. You look at this guy and you think, wait, what? This guy's an elite athlete? I don't believe it. Multiple world championships? How is that possible? It's because, yes, he's got a coach that's nailed his fundamentals. He can practice all the time and get that good throwing motion. He knows what to do. He knows the playbook and all that. But when it comes down to it, he does something crazy where he drops back in the pocket, ducks under a sack, and suddenly is agile and chucks it up into the air, and someone catches it for a huge gain in the Super Bowl on the top of his helmet. That guy's being hella clutch too, but I'm trying to focus on Eli here. He's doing something that is not taught. He's making a play when it needs to happen. And now I'm saying, like, well, you just have to make a play and figure it out yourself. But honestly, like, you do. You have to figure out, do I want to win? Do I want this to be cool? Do I want to put a loss on my ticket and say, like, oh, I guess we'll start over, or like, the lighthouse isn't for me, or matchmaking sucks? You can blame it on whatever you want, or you can just say, like, look, this isn't impossible, and I got this, and just zero in, breathe, and take that adrenaline rush and use it as fuel to make the best play ever. And that's the part I'm addicted to, is making those plays, and you go, that was sick. I'm gonna hit save on that one for sure. I mean, and you're still in it. You can still keep playing, and your teammates are, all jacked up, and they're saying like, "Look, we got this." And that other team is, they are furious. that you can absolutely guarantee is if you're pulling this stuff up, the other team is furious. You've got in their head, and there's the mental game right there for you. Now it's your guys' time to just crank it up a notch and finish the game off.
The better I get, and the more I get my basic skills in check, the more I realized, this is it. This is what I'm going to be working on for the rest of my time in Destiny. I can aim, I can hit a headshot, I can do these things. The skill that I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to master is saying, all right, this is how it's going to go down. And just deciding that you're going to call the play for the rest of the match. You're going to decide, despite this other team trying to stop you, that this is what's going to happen next, and just making it happen. I wish I could get inside your head while it's happening, but I think it's, I'm just going to have to figure it out for myself over time.
It's weird. It clicks, but it feels good. And if you hang on to the feeling, you're going, okay, I get it now. It happens once. You don't know how it happened. And you're like, well, that team had to do something wrong, or you're trying to think of why that occurred, but you do feel it and it feels good. And you're going, okay, yeah, this is something doable. I can be clutch.
This is something I worked on over the weekend, and I may not have been vocal that I've been working on it, but I was finding myself in last man standing situations. And, there was a few close calls where I almost had it, and I was like, damn, I almost saved the round for us. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things for this is you need an understanding team. You need someone they're going to be like, oh, I know what he's doing. He's trying to work on this. If we lose the round, we can make it up, but at least trying to be vocal, give him call out to kind of set him up to succeed.
Yeah, there's so much you can do as one of the players down, and there's call-outs you can make as the last player alive. I'll do an impression of myself in Trials. Where is he? Where? And I'm just wanting more information. I'm not mad at my team. It's going like, if I can, like Swain does all the time. He goes, all right, he's coming around the corner. 3, 2. It's just like, that was like an auto snipe for me. I had to do nothing. I didn't even have to react. I just timed it and pulled the trigger. And all those things can, add up to this amazing play where you helped them out and you got them, you did something for your team, and they came up clutch, and it all comes together for a win.
Well, you talk about your sniper rifle, and it's important every now and then that we really focus on the tools of the trade. I actually had something pretty exciting happen this week. And I can't take much credit for it. This was a team effort. I just got to give a shout out to Scott, fellow moderator on the playbook, Suinak, the numbers man, and Maniac Greek. Collaboratively, we took the time, mostly in the form of arguing over every last little bit of it, and we did our best to put together the definitive pulse rifle guide for year 2. We looked at all the guns, all the perks, tried to figure out what's important. So many questions we see on Playbook or on YouTube or on Reddit or on the forums say, is this a good roll? Is this a good gun? So much of it's luck of the draw. And we really wanted to figure out, all right, let's come up with a way to answer that question. And, it's not perfect, but I think we did it. I think we get pretty darn close.
This thing is a thing of beauty. This has every perk you can get on every kind of pulse rifle, on every weapon manufacturer, what works for what kind of pulse. This isn't House of Wolves anymore, guys. This isn't here's the 4 perks you want on every single gun. Go waste motes until you got it. This thing covers any question you can have on pulse rifles. It's really a work of art here.
Well, thanks, man. We'll put a link in the show notes. Absolutely go check it out and absorb it. But I figure I'd just try and give a big picture breakdown on, year 2. It's all about pulse rifles right now. Here's how you choose a good pulse rifle. You guys want to do this?
Let's go.
Let's jump in.
All right. So the most important question to ask first is, what makes a good pulse rifle? What matters in a pulse rifle? And the reality is that if you can land your entire burst with headshots with a pulse rifle, you are golden. You've got one of the deadliest, one of the fastest killing guns in the game. But that is a lot easier said than done. It's not just about skill. It's not about aim. You need to have a pulse rifle that has a tight enough grouping that those bursts stay close together and they have recoil that's small and it works in a predictable way. And if you have that, you hear people talking about my pulse rifle as a laser beam. They're talking about pulse rifles with high stability. Stability is everything, and perks that give you more stability, that is the name of the game. And there's a lot of different perks you can get on pulse rifles, but there's a couple that really stand out. These are braced frame. That's going to give you a huge boost in stability at the expense of some magazine size. And look, pulse rifles got pretty big magazines. That's not anything we feel bad about giving up. Perfect balance is another great perk. Not as much of a boost, but no downside, and really tightens up the recoil. My personal favorite is small bore. Small bore is going to give you both range and stability. It's going to hurt your reload speed. It's going to hurt your magazine size, but it's just going to give you this huge boost to stability. And what that does is it just pulls the pulse in real tight. So if you start with that first shot on the head, you're that much more likely to stay on the head and get those critical shots. Small bore also gives you a boost in range. And talking with John Wisniewski, we know how important range is. Yeah, it's about not having damage drop off. But if you've got a high range, you're going to get better aim assist. You're going to get better accuracy. You're going to be able to take more shots and have them land on target. And so if we've got our stability boosted up and then we can do something to boost range, you're going to be golden. And so we want to look for perks that help with that. We mentioned small bore, so it does that double duty. If you've got a Suros pulse rifle, you can get hammer forged, and that one is so key as well. And also rifled barrel. That'll give you more range at slower reload. And if you've got a combination of those two perks, you've got the great makings for a good pulse rifle. In fact, I'll even say if you don't have at least one of the good stability boosting perks on your pulse rifle, it's probably not the one for you.
Well, so you talked about the difference between Suros and Haka pulse rifles. What really changes from manufacturer to manufacturer?
Oh, see, that is so key. I mean, you can have good perks, but you want to have the right gun too. In year 2, we've got multiple manufacturers, and for pulse rifles, there's really 3 different kinds of guns you can get. Of course, there's the classic configuration, and you'll know that because it'll have the one perk, the tree of 3 perks, and then the one other perk. You've got access to all the year 1 scopes, and there's different perks that can roll in each slot there. That's a great choice. But I think Suros might have it beat. Suros has got the 2-1-2 perk configuration, and all the guns that are made by Suros all have that configuration. They can all roll the same perks, but the Suros guns are capable of some really cool combinations. It can give you double stability boosters. It's the only gun that can do that. Haka is kind of an interesting one. Now, Haka's got a 1-1-3 configuration, and the downside to Haka is that it doesn't have access to those really good stability boosters. So perfect balance, can't get that on a Haka. Small bore, can't get that on a Haka. And braced frame, you actually can't get that on a Haka or a Suros. That's classic only. And so you really want to start with a gun that works well there. And so choosing a manufacturer that gives you access to the perks you want, that's going to be key. But probably even more important than that is archetype. And I don't think archetype's a pretty simple thing to explain. Basically, all the guns in the game all the pulses, they fall into one of 4 families. And they go like this. There's, Noose described it last week as sort of a seesaw. You have this trade-off between rate of fire and impact. So you can shoot faster, but the bullets do less damage, or you can shoot slower, but they hit a lot harder. And these hardest hitting guns, there's 2 of them in year 2. That's going to be the Spare Change and the Lyudmila, which is a Haka.
There you go.
Nice pronunciation.
Thank you. I've been practicing. This is such an expert gun. If you manage to land all of those rounds in the burst as crits, you are going to completely demolish your opponent's shield in 1 hit. And if you manage to do that twice in a row, you can kill most Guardians in 2 bursts. But the downside is you almost have to treat it like a sniper rifle because it shoots so slowly. If you manage to miss one, well, it's that much longer until you can take that second shot. So if you've got that real steady hand, you really trust your aim, then Spare Change is going to be the one for you. Lyudmila is also great. For both of these guns, they tend to have a really hard horizontal pull, so they kick really hard to the left or the right. And there's one perk that can help you out there. That's the counterbalance perk. It's the only perk in the game that does this. It'll take your recoil, and instead of pulling off to the side, it'll make it straight vertical. And it's a pretty rare perk to roll. You're not going to see it. Your best bet's probably getting it from the gunsmith and just waiting for him to offer it. But that's going to give you this huge advantage because, if your pulse rifle, if it's pulling off to the side, you might hit 2 of them, but that last one is off to the left somewhere. If you've got straight vertical recoil, then even if you just manage to hit some body shots, the recoil is going to pull it up into that head region. It's just much, much more forgiving when you're trying to take those shots.
I have to be honest, I cannot use those slow rate of fire pulses. And that's just a preference, but they just don't fit me. And it's amazing to see that I don't have to use the Hopscotch Pilgrim this year. There's choices. And I can actually make a decision based on how I feel about a gun.
Looking at all these archetypes, it's nice to see that like a gun in each one that I've used.
Yeah.
It's like I like all these pulse rifles.
I mean, and that's it. There's no best archetype. It's really about what works for your playstyle. I mean, Bonesy, I know you like a sniper rifle, and so using one of these, we call them the messenger guns. That was the Trials gun from last year that had this same hard-hitting aspect. You basically have 2 sniper rifles at that point. So if you like to play a little bit closer, a little more aggressively, you might want to use one of these other archetypes. And they are, we'll just name them. There's the Red Death archetype, shoots a little bit faster, hits a little bit less hard, and we've got some great guns in here. We've got Nerwin's Mercy, which you can get from Iron Banner. You've got the Villainy, which they sell at the vendor, the Herja D, the Suros PDX-41, the Stranger's Rifle, and No Time to Explain, and the Apple of Discord. All of these guns are all basically the same. They're going to vary in little bits, but they all share these same characteristics. What it's really about is getting the right perks on them, and that's going to help you choose which gun that you want. The cool thing about this one is that it hits just a little bit less hard, but if you can just land 3 bursts, even if you don't hit a single headshot, you can take out any Guardian. And that is a really good balance for most people. Really, the right one is, you might want to use Red Death because you get that healing, or you might have the great roll on the Nerwins, but they're all going to feel about the same. Going just a little bit faster and hitting a little bit less hard, we get to the Bad Juju archetype. And in here we see the Suros PDX-45, but of course the Hawksaw, everybody's favorite. This is such a great all-arounder, and it's such a great pair for a sniper rifle. You can still kill in 3 bursts, but you have to hit at least 5 of those as critical shots. But this is a fast-firing gun. It's forgiving. And this, I think, is a great choice, a great all-around choice for most people. Picking up that vendor Hawksaw is such a great move. There's one last archetype, and we call that the Praedyth's Timepiece archetype. There's only one gun in Taken King that fits in this archetype. That's the Grasp of Malik. Oof. You're going to have to go grind Omnigul if you want to get your hands on one of those.
And then you got to hope.
Yeah, hope and pray and be ready to do it a bunch of times. But this is like the auto rifle of the pulse rifle world. It shoots so fast, and it doesn't hit that hard. You can actually, if you manage to land all of your shots, it's got a great time to kill. But it's just a very different thing. With the messenger, you can kind of peek out, take a shot, and go back. With this one, you got to be out there landing round after round after round after round. If that fits your play style, you might want to go after that one. From there, all right, let's simplify it. What do we want in a gun? If you can get your hands on a Red Death, if you picked up that Nerwin's Mercy, or you go buy that vendor Hawksaw, you've got a great gun. Those are the guns to beat, and those have been available to just about everyone. If you want to roll your own, there's just a couple perks I want to point out that I think are great, great perks. Of course, you want that stability booster, but there's some other cool stuff. If you've got a Suros gun, you can get Hidden Hand. That's free aim assist. That is awesome. If you also have a Suros gun, you can get Hip Fire, which makes it a pulse rifle, which we think is sort of mid to long range engagements, and it can really make it effective when you start to get close up. After that, it's pretty much just about what you like in a gun. There's a ton of great perks here, a lot of good all-arounders.
You're seeing a lot of tier 2.
A lot of tier 2. If it works for you, we've got things that make you reload faster, things like Feeding Frenzy or Outlaw. There's some damage boosters like Crowd Control, or, Grenadier will get your grenade charging faster. And look, we don't have Reforge. It's a lot of the luck of the draw. Maybe you'll get a roll that wasn't your first choice, but you find it works for you. I guess the main takeaway from this is that pulse rifles are such chameleons. These different archetypes give you so many different choices in your play style, and there's no one right choice out there. It's really about what works for your loadout as a whole, what works for your play style. There's some great stuff that's available to everyone. So try them all out. There's just about every archetype you can buy from a vendor for a gunsmith, and sort of see what feels right, what works for you. And hey, if you get lucky with that God Roll Suros, it shoots like a laser beam and it gives you the hidden hand bonus, lucky you. I wish I could get one of those. But just have fun with it. Pulses are dominant right now and everyone's using them, but they can just play like any other kind of gun. So go have some fun. Go try some out.
The other thing about making these kind of selections, and obviously if you've got a good roll, go with it, because they are, few and far between nowadays, which I love personally. But sometimes you're like, I've got 2 good guns. Which ones do I use? You gotta do a little more research on the weapons and find those secondary stats that don't come out visually in the UI.
Oh, yeah.
Take, for example, like Hawksaw, which everyone will recommend, and Suros PDX 45, which everyone is loving. And I think Banshee might actually still have it if you're listening to this episode early enough. Go take a peek. They look kind of identical as far as the primary stats go, the same rate of fire, same impact, obviously. Obviously, they have the high reload. But then if you look, say on PlanetDestiny or the Armory, Suros PDX has an aim assist of 70. Hawksaw only 60. Well, if you like aim assist, that might be your gun. Hawksaw, on the other hand, has an equip speed of 89 compared to the PDX's 71. So if you're like me and you love taking those body shot snipers and switching to your primary to finish it off, then the Hawksaw is like the way to go. So you got to do due diligence and figure out really what is it about this gun that I like. Is it because it hits this hard, or is it because it's fast or it's stable? There's so many elements to the weapons that you just gotta kind of find out for yourself.
Well, guys, we've spent enough time lecturing our poor listeners.
Swain, tell us something.
Tell us something good.
I don't have feelings.
Well, how do you feel about maybe doing a little bit of musical break before we talk to our guests? That's Robot for I'm Jamming. I'm into it.
We've really programmed Swain well this week.
Laughter.
On a summer beach, in a summertime, in a mother's hand, dotted silhouette by the crashing waves, and the melody strong.
All right, I am very excited to introduce our guest. He is a Crucible scientist and also a darn decent player. If you hang out in Crucible Playbook or in the Destiny the Game subreddit, you know him as Shitbeard the Pirate. But of course, we all know him as Fallout Plays. Thank you for coming to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Welcome.
So, tell us a little bit about your history in gaming, how you got into Destiny, and kind of how you got into this Crucible scientist role.
Sure. Well, like most people who I've heard talk on this podcast, I've been playing FPS games for a really long time. I started off with GoldenEye, which I think you probably heard before.
Classic.
Yep. GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, moved on to Halo, and then it was pretty much just Halo for a long while. I really did love that game. Eventually, Bungie broke off, announced that they were going to do something big on their own, and I just started following Destiny. All my friends and my girlfriend, we were really excited about Destiny because we just knew, a game this big coming from Bungie, it's going to be good. It came out and we just got hooked on it right away. And, I've always been a huge multiplayer guy. Every time I've played a Halo game, I love playing multiplayer with my friends. I do a ton of multiplayer before I even touch the campaign of a game.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people are surprised to hear that.
So did that have you kind of backwards in this game?
It did, yeah. Kind of threw me for a loop there.
Well, I had the exact opposite experience where I played a ton of PvE and then finally worked up my courage to get into the PvP side of it. But I did not come from a long PvP background. But even that being said, okay, so you started with the PvP, you're learning it inside and out, but it's quite a leap from there as a player to get sort of into the professional side of doing research and putting together these great Reddit posts. I mean, how did you get into that aspect of it?
So when I first started doing YouTube stuff and multiplayer guides, it was because the Master Chief Collection was going to come out, and I wanted to help my friends kind of wrap their head around how to play the multiplayer in Halo 1 and Halo 2, because a lot of the people who I play with today weren't playing Halo back in the days of Halo 1 and Halo 2. So I made 2 Halo videos just for my friends, kind of guide videos. They were really pretty basic stuff, but I posted it on the Halo subreddit, and it seemed to get a pretty good reaction. A lot of people really enjoyed that content who had never played Halo 1 or Halo 2 before. And then, I don't know if you heard about this, but the launch for Halo the Master Chief Collection was kind of a
sort of mixed bag.
Mixed bag. It's a really polite way of saying.
A little variety.
It was an interesting experience.
There you go. Yeah. Good. Okay.
So it's not like I ever left Destiny, because I loved Destiny. I was playing it all the time, but it's just that I was so comfortable with how good I was at Halo and how familiar I was with the multiplayer, because I've been playing for years. And then eventually, my friends came back to me and they said, hey, you know how you made those Halo videos, those guides? You should do that for Destiny. And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know how qualified I am to do that. And they said, well, you know that you're in the top 1% of all players on the Crucible, right? And I said, actually, no, I didn't know that. Where the hell did you find that out? And that was when I learned about Destiny Tracker and all that fun stuff. But I had seen a lot of other guide videos on YouTube where the people were just kind of walking through the skill tree. They were just kind of reading it off. That was their version of the guide. They would say things like, oh yeah, here's the guide for the Sunsinger. If you pick this perk, people who you light on fire will burn more. And then they would just move on to the next perk. And I would just be like, well, wait a minute. Sure. Well, what about, how long?
Okay.
How much is the damage? How long does it last for? There were so many questions. So I figured out that the real only way to figure it out was if I literally got all my friends into a game at one time to try and do testing. And this was kind of before I had figured out about setting up quote-unquote custom games in Destiny, or sweaties, depending on the terminology you use. Originally, all my testing started off with me and a friend of mine going into a game of Rumble, and we would literally run off into the corner of a map away from the action as far as we could to try and quickly test out, whatever it was that we were testing. And that was a nightmare. But, you have to do what you got to do. I mean, I was really determined to make sure that whatever information I got, it was as accurate as possible.
Your history with other video games and actually making guides for other video games kind of brings up an interesting topic, because I know that I was half decent at Halo 4 and pretty good at Destiny, but if you made me play, Halo 1 multiplayer, I would get smoked. So I feel like I would require a different, type of learning for that. Do you feel like you have to teach differently for a game? Do you have a different approach to it? Or do you feel like you can apply the same kind of thinking just in general to all of your guides? Like, how does it change from game to game, and do they combine to make something grander?
I think that people are very visual learners these days. The first Halo guide that I made, it was basically no talking. It was just me introducing myself. Hey, I'm Fallout, Master Chief Collection is coming out. Not a lot of people have played Halo 1. So here's a guide on a couple of tricks that you might not know about Halo 1. And then I just kind of played this short little montage with a little bit of music over it. And for the most part, that's pretty true with my guides for Destiny 2. I know I do have sometimes I have a lot of numbers. I have a lot of me talking about the perks and why I think they're good, but I always try to match up the audio in my guides and what I'm talking about with relevant clips. I just want to make sure that people not only get the information verbally, but they also see it in action too, because I feel like that's very important to the learning process.
I think you're right. I mean, that's absolutely key. It's important to have that as a resource because, if you just sort of look at in-game text on a perk, it tells you what, a very small description of what's actually happening, but you don't know if it's any good or not. You don't know if it's actually worth doing. I sort of think back to high caliber rounds in PvP in year one, and it was something that we all kind of thought, all right, well, you know, a little drop to handling, but the flinch is good. That's nice. And then when someone actually did the testing, we found, okay, well, explosive rounds seem to do something, but high caliber rounds don't actually seem to have a visible effect in PvP. Let me ask this. I've got, you know, a ton of your posts pulled up here. You know, you mentioned the Sunbreaker Titan. You've got reviews of specific exotics like the stag. And then you did a lot of videos right around year one, year two, sort of that transition. Mm-hmm. Kind of walk me through that first part of the process of putting together a guide like this. What gets you fired up about a question? How do you go from, you know, what am I going to do today to the point of saying, all right, let's fly into a Rumble match and hide in the corner so I can test this out extensively? How do you choose your topics?
For the subclass guides, I feel like those are kind of my baseline. I feel like people are always going to be interested on the details and the information of how to play a subclass well in the Crucible. But beyond that, it kind of is anything that hits me, I suppose. It really depends. I do listen to the community a lot, and I will read posts on, you know, on Reddit or on the Bungie forums or on Twitter, and people just talking about guns, people talking about armor, and asking questions that they don't really know the answer to. And one of my favorite videos that I did in year one was what you can live through while wearing the RAM.
Oh, yeah.
That was a fun one.
I think we all found out some important stuff about the RAM when that came
definitely.
That stupid helmet.
Yeah, it was basically me talking with my friends. We were all very excited about the new armor and the new everything coming out. My friend showed me, hey, check out this new armor for the Warlock. I think you'll probably be interested in it. And it was the RAM, and it had that perk, you know, gives you more armor. It didn't tell you how much, and I was just like, ooh, this is awesome. I really want to figure this out. Being the huge loser that I am, I put together a gigantic Excel spreadsheet with everything that I could possibly think of. You know, like, okay, what are the top PvP guns right now? What can we test? What's really important? Because yeah, I could test how the RAM takes damage from every gun that I could possibly think of, but why do that when the Crucible metagame has a very specific selection of guns that perform well? So I'm putting together this list in Excel of like, okay, how about Thorn to the head? Okay, that's good. How about Thorn to the body? Yeah. Last word to the head, ADS to the head, or last word hipfire to the head, because those two things are different. You know, hipfire to the body, ADS to the body. So I'm putting all this stuff down on an Excel spreadsheet so that when I actually go into a custom game with my friends, we can just blow right through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you seem to have an angle for all your videos and everything, and the way you talk about getting better. I've heard you have a mantra.
I do. Sort of unofficial. I don't really, I mean, unless you follow me on Twitter, which not a ton of people do, but
I do.
I know you do. I do appreciate that. I was very psyched the day that I found out that you were following me. But the unofficial mantra is that anyone can play. And not only can anyone play, anyone can be good at the Crucible. I feel like everyone has at least one friend, and you're probably thinking of them right now, who just says, you know what, I'm not a PvP guy. I can't do it. I've tried it, can't do it. And you're just like, well, how hard did you try? Well, yeah, I got the game and I played Crucible on, you know, day 1, day 2. I just couldn't do it. I never went back. But it's like anyone can do well if you try hard enough. There's a couple of things that, as long as you just get the fundamentals down, anyone can be a good player. It's not some gigantic mystery.
It really hits home for me because I just at one point was just like, I want to be better at this. I think I can be better at this. I just spent time watching other players and actually playing the game, and I'm a much better player for it.
It also reminds me of our conversation with Chris Cluey from a few episodes back, and he was talking about the difference between being a gamer and something like an NFL player, where in the NFL you kind of got to win some sort of genetic lottery, and you know, you got to be the right height, you got to weigh a certain amount, or else you're going to get killed out there. But with gaming, you know, there's a lot of skills that you can develop yourself that can be trained and can be learned, like hand-eye coordination and reaction time and things like that. So it does have a sort of level playing field as far as entry-level players go. And, you know, there's no type of person that is super good at video games, because anyone can eventually get good at it.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely a more even playing field. It's more accommodating to people who want to just dive in and improve. And Swain, I think you said you were a good example of someone who just said, "Hey, you know what? I want to improve. I want to play PvP more." And then over time, you do get better. And another great example of that is my brother. I'm actually very fortunate that I play Destiny with a lot of people who are very close to me, including my girlfriend and my brother.
Nice. It's a dream.
The day Mrs. Bird starts playing Destiny with me you better take all the money out of the bank because something terrible has happened.
But my brother actually got into Destiny pretty late. He got it around the time, I think The Dark Below had been out for a couple weeks because everyone had been raiding. And he got the game late because all of his roommates were playing, and he thought it would be cool to hop in with them and hop in with me and just play the game that we were all currently playing. And at first he was afraid to go into PvP. Maybe not really afraid, but he didn't really have the confidence. And, he would hear us play in party chat all the time. We would go into group games of Rumble, either with fire teams of 3 or if you want to bring in a fire team of 6, which I really recommend because that's just a ton of fun. But he would hear us in party chat playing Rumble, and I think his original image of Crucible was this really gritty, everyone's, nervous and, you don't want to underperform. And it's like only MLG players are amazing at, online multiplayer and all that. He was very, I think, intimidated. But when he heard us in the party chat playing Rumble together, we're all just having fun and laughing and like, "Oh, you stuck me, you jerk. I'm going to get your ass next time," and all that good stuff. And I think he kind of warmed up to it. So eventually he just said one day, "You know what? Invite me. I'll join you for Rumble. I'm probably going to get mollywopped." And he did. But he just said, "I want to give it a shot. Let's go."
It's funny because my sister got the game maybe 2 weeks ago, and this week I took her into her first Crucible match. And she's like, "What am I like? What's going on? Why is everybody?" it was kind of funny to see that from the perspective of someone just getting into it for the very first time. You don't always get that glimpse.
Well, I want to go back to something that you said. You talked about the fundamentals, and I think that's key. And a lot of Crucible skill definitely just comes from putting hours in. Part of that is learning the maps, and it's always fun when a new bunch of maps come out, and for one day I'm just awful. I'm just running into bad situations with no ideas. And then there's things like gun skill, and a lot of that comes over time and sort of working on specific things. But I felt like a lot of the fundamentals I had to learn at the beginning were really about not making mistakes more than they were about other things. I had to learn how to hide and how to stay alive and how to use cover and how to read my radar and know when I was outmatched. But I guess I'm curious, those were the formative moments for me. For you, sort of starting at ground zero, Swain's sister who just got started, could you kind of walk us through what you think sort of those fundamental skills are for someone who wants to go from 0 to 100?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything that you just mentioned, by the way, a couple of the things, the gun skill and the map skill, a lot of that falls under what I think is kind of the biggest and most important umbrella, which people who are just trying to get into the Crucible should really take home, which is just take time and be patient because results will come in time. You can't be hard on yourself, and you have to expect some level of failure. I know that sounds really grim, but you have to expect that you will fail, and I promise you will fail. But you will not always fail. You're going to fail at the beginning. I mean, do you think that Dave Chappelle took the mic at a stand-up club the very first time and just knocked the audience dead and they just threw money at him? I mean, he bombed for a very long time before getting to where he was. And I'm not going to say that it's going to be a long time because it depends on how quick of a learner you are, I suppose. But you can't give up on yourself. You can't beat up on yourself if you make mistakes because you just have to accept that good things come in time. And there's a really good quote. I can't remember who said the quote, but it's something I always read every now and then. And the quote is, "The difference between a master and a novice is that the master has failed more than the novice has tried."
Nice.
Wise
like
words.
Yeah.
that also makes me feel good every time I get stomped. That it's like, no, I'm just putting in the required number of failures to truly
Exactly.
reach master level.
I was going to say,
no
like,
rush.
obviously I can handle adversity because I do improv comedy in LA, and oh boy, do I know what it's like to go on stage and bomb. So Crucible's nothing, no big deal.
So what comes next?
Next, I would say take time to find out who the good players are online, and if you can, watch them. I think that's very important. I think if you just watch top players, or even not even top players, players who just know what they're doing, watch them on Twitch, watch them on YouTube, watch them anywhere. And if you watch them playing when they're truly playing at their best, then you'll be surprised at how much you just pick up from watching alone.
I actually have to admit, like when we started this show, I did not watch Twitch really much at all. I mean, I knew about it. I knew the big names and things like that. And obviously, you know, the early guests, who do we got to get on? But I didn't really spend time and, you know, dedicate any time to just observing their game. I just knew they were good and I knew their stats, and that was fine. But when you watch them, it's all about the subtle things that you pick up. Habits like pre-firing, where they're standing, which box they jump on, that kind of thing. I mean, and it doesn't come out so overtly. They're not saying while they do it, well, here's why I did this, and this is why you should do it as well. But you kind of just memorize that, and then the next time you're on the map, you remember that spot and you jump up on that box instead, and suddenly you are applying those things. So it kind of like through osmosis helps you out. And now I've really had to accept that that's a great way to get better and something that I need to do a lot.
Yeah, that's really true. I mean, you pick up on a lot of things that you don't even realize just by watching the people play the way that they play. I mean, sometimes if you're really paying attention, you'll notice, oh wow, look at the way he moved around the map that way. Look at the way he coordinated that push with his team. Look at the way he did this. Look at the way he did that. That's really interesting. You know, you pick up on things that you wouldn't even think of, and they just come to you because you're watching, and you just go, oh wow, I should remember that for when I'm playing.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I really liked watching Fizz, because he would, instead of having to like learn his subtleties from just watching him, he was very vocal about saying, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm dying continuously, but I'm being patient with it. I'm watching excellent players and throwing my fists up at the sky, wondering why they're so much better than me, and saying, oh man, I wish I could find angles like that, or I could move around like that. But I'm really committed to it. I'm gonna play an hour every day, and I really want to try and focus on improving. Let's get into specifics. When I'm flying in for that match, let's say I'm solo queuing, you know, skirmish or clash or something. What are some specific things I can use to win the game or to just keep my KD up?
In terms of in-game specifics, you know, a lot of it depends on what game type you're playing and who you're with. But, you know, one thing that always remains a constant, always, is that you really have to communicate a lot. If you're ever watching, again, I know I'm kind of backtracking here, but if you're watching top players who play and they know how to win and they know how to play, they are almost always talking. And this is something that I always recommend to people who are coming in with me to play matchmaking for the first time, or coming with me to play sweaties for the first time. They say, you know, I'm kind of nervous. I've never done a sweaty before. I probably suck. I'm going to weigh your team down. What should I do? First of all, calm down. And second of all, just talk, because you don't think that it makes a big difference, but it really does. It really does. I mean, telling your teammates everything that you see going on. You know, there's an enemy here. There's an enemy there. They have this health. They're at full health. They're at low health. They're using this gun. They're pushing from this direction. The more that you open up the lines of communication with your teammates during the game, it's just so much easier to play better and to win. Because you're giving, even if you are not confident in your ability to strafe or throw a grenade or shoot a gun or be accurate with your sniper headshots, it's easy to communicate well. And by relaying that information to your teammates, you're giving so much valuable information.
You know, I had decided recently, I mean, literally within the past couple of days, I've really been playing, you know, I'll play a little bit over my lunch break, that kind of thing. So I'll get in a match. And so I'm usually playing solo, you know, I'll get together with a group sometimes. But one thing I decided is like, look, I'm playing elimination solo. There's no reason why I can't give call-outs. There's no reason why I can't talk. I mean, I have to assume, even if they're not talking back, they've got their headphones on. They can hear me. They might ignore everything I say and pretend to not hear what I say. But what I found was that just by sort of opening that line of communication, it had an effect on me. Even when my teammates, when I say, all right, let's go snipe up B this time, and they'd rush off to get cream today. That was fine. I was moving to where I wanted to move. I was watching what they were doing. And it kind of took me into the moment a little bit more. I was thinking less about, all right, well, I've got time for another match after this, and I hope I get a good drop after this, and I'm really trying to work on my KD, and let me land this headshot. And more just sort of focus on playing the game. Even when you're just sort of talking into the void, I know it really helped to make it all about, what am I doing now? What am I doing next? What are my teammates doing now? In a way that, when you're just grinding for playing a long time, it's easy to kind of get far away from that and spend your time sort of thinking about the last play that you made, or thinking about the play that you're going to make next, instead of just kind of doing it in the moment.
That's a good point. If you open up that line of communication, you become more focused. You feel like you're paying attention more. It's very easy to just kind of go into autopilot, I guess. And,
Sure.
You don't really think about what you're doing. You just start going through the motions, and then things kind of fall apart because you're not really paying attention. But when you open up that line of communication, everything becomes that much more focused.
Oh, we have a great question on Twitter today by a Mr. Water Balloon. He asked, any recommended resources to improve my Clash game? I'm going to miss Control so much for this Iron Banner, which I'm excited for. I can't wait for Clash Iron Banner. But you have any tips for him along the lines of Clash?
Well, as soon as Shaq started saying Iron Banner Control,
he might do Clash one day.
Saying something else after that, it could happen.
Iron Banner Rumble?
Rumble.
Oh God,
Inferno Iron Banner.
That would be crazy.
Iron Banner Strike playlists.
Yeah, I'm really excited for Iron Banner Clash. I think it's going to be awesome. I'm probably not going to be too sad to see Control taking a backseat next week.
It was Clash before, with just some flags here and there.
The occasional capping of A when you have a perfectly good setup on B and C, but
Exactly. Well, I think that Control sometimes forces your hand and forces your team's hand and the way that you guys play, just based on who has control of what zones at any given time in a match. I feel like Control makes you play a certain way that you normally probably would not play in Clash. Because think about it. Let's say that you're playing on, Blind Watch. And I think that many of us could probably agree that on Blind Watch, it's really good to have the two territories on the bottom of the map. If you're in control of C and B, that's probably a really good map control to hold, because it's very easy to kind of lock down that area of the map. So for the other team, their hand has been forced, because now they're spawning outside by A on Blind Watch, which is not a great place to be in control. And now they have to push in to try and take one of the two territories, which is really difficult on Blind Watch when the enemy has C and B. That is a real challenge. In Clash, you have a little bit more flexibility to play differently than you would in Control. There's not so much that feeling of having a gun pointed at your head when the enemy team has zone whatever in zone whatever, and they really are just kind of not camping, but, really just locking down that map very, very hard. So in Clash, I feel like you can take your time more. Now, sometimes it doesn't feel like that. Sometimes Clash kind of feels like a clusterfuck. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I think that is the technical term for describing what Clash
Iron
can feel
Banner
like.
clusterfuck.
When you're playing Clash instead of Control, I feel like you have more time to plan things out with your team. Because sometimes there are moments in Control where you guys have a zone locked down, and then you can see that the enemy has started to take control of that zone, and you go, quick, whoever's in that area, throw yourself at that zone. Don't let them take that zone. Sacrifice your body. Get the hell over there and stop them. And in Clash, you don't see as much of that. You can take your time, you can coordinate good pushes with your teammates, and you just don't have that feeling of having a gun pointed to your head the way you want to play sometimes.
It's interesting to use Blind Watch as an example, because I think for Control, you're right. I think C and B are points that really support each other in as much as they're going to require you to stand on B with all of your friends bunched up together. Just one of the most dangerous places on that map. And what's interesting is that when you play that in Clash, where you don't have those objectives, I think it kind of flips. I think
does,
A becomes not even A necessarily, but just the top of the map. When you don't have to worry about pushing into and standing on B, you can just control the entire top floor, and you're looking down on the rest of the team. And all of a sudden, this pressure to hold the center of the map gets lightened a little bit, and you can say, well, I'm just going to define the region that I want to hold, and my team is going to lock that down, and that's going to be our base instead of these very specific points that were chosen.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's Blind Watch is an interesting map like that. Control and Clash, it just completely switches to a different way. And I think a lot of people are going to have to probably get used to that, or at least go into Iron Banner with that in mind, knowing, okay, this is how I played this map the last time I played Iron Banner. But that was Control. Now we're playing Clash. So how do I normally play this map on Clash? Where do I go? What does my team do?
So when you're playing Iron Banner Drifter, it's a more symmetrical map, but you're not bound to holding A and B anymore. What's going to be sort of your team's approach on consistently winning matches in Drifter?
God, I really hate that map.
People have strong feelings about this map. I don't think anyone feels ambivalent about Drifter.
My preference for Drifter is probably to bring up the menu button and hit switch character.
You're destroying your KDR and your stats here, man. Quitting games.
It's totally worth it. No, I'm just kidding. It's very difficult on big games like Clash and Control to play on maps like Drifter. I feel like Drifter is a much better map for skirmish. In big game types like Clash and Control, you have to really be aware of who is hiding, for the lack of a better term, in those pipes. You know what I mean? I feel like players who really like to play on Drifter, and this is something that you definitely need to keep in mind if you get Drifter for Clash or Control, is that they're definitely going to be trying to take control of the pipes with close range weapons like the shotgun, like I'll say the Chaperone or the Matador or the Party Crasher, all guns that were...
Telesto!
Telesto. If I say bad things about Telesto, is Bungie gonna...
Nusk will personally come hunt you down on Twitter and explain to you why you're wrong.
I have heard.
So let's do one more map.
Sure.
Tell me, and this I assume is a favorite. Most people seem to like this one. Tell me how you want to play Frontier in Clash.
For Frontier, I think that when you play in Control, it's very important that you have someone keeping their eye on that outside middle territory at all times, Zone B. It's very important in most game types of Control that you're controlling the very middle zone, because that gives you more, it lets you control the map more. So now that you're playing Frontier in Clash as opposed to Control, you have a little bit more flexibility. You don't have to constantly keep looking over your shoulder or having one guy posting out in that area by B to make sure that they don't constantly push out over there to try and get you out. I wish I could think of a more specific example of how Frontier plays differently. So on Pantheon, Control plays really differently than Clash, because in Control on Pantheon, and I'm sure you've had this happen to you at least once, it's really, really rage-inducing. The spawn points on Pantheon, for the most part, are really carved in stone. If you spawn on that one side of the map right at the beginning, you're there for life, baby. So just buckle up. And then in Control, the other team, if they're good, they know that. And they know that once they get control of the middle zone, they can push in as hard as they want. God, that sounds really sexual. Once you get control of the center zone, you can just push in really hard on the enemy spawn and just abuse them. You can push in really deep. Now, God, that sounds really fucking sexual too. Okay,
I think you got it worse.
I might have a problem here.
You can penetrate this spawn. I'm just trying to help you out. Come up with some different words here.
Oh my god! No matter how tight the defense is, you just gotta penetrate.
It gets easier as you do it more times.
So anyway, in Control, you can push the enemy spawn, and they're gonna keep spawning there. You have to push really hard into the enemy spawn for them to spawn somewhere else. Now in Clash, it's a different story. if you push into their spawn on Pantheon too hard, the game is going to kind of flip out and spawn them somewhere else because you're blocking their spawn points too hard. The spawn points are much harder to block on Pantheon in Control. And that's when you get those situations in Iron Banner where people are like, oh, I fucking hate Pantheon. Because once the enemy team gets control of the middle, they push in on your spawn, there's almost nothing you can do. You're trapped back there. And they'll just keep hammering you over and over. They have a real advantage over you. And in Clash, it's much harder to hold on to that advantage. You have to have players on your team anchored back at your own spawn on the map, just kind of patrolling out, holding an anchor position, because you're saying, hey, we're going to go push them on the spawn really hard. We have a couple supers. We're going to go in. We're going to push them on the spawn. You stay back just for a minute. We're using you as an anchor to make sure that when we kill them on the spawn, that the game doesn't flip spawns and then we all lose our control of the map. We want to keep them where we are. So it's much harder to do that in Clash than it is in Control.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I really hope that there's enough maps in the game now that we can have a rotation for Iron Banner, because I feel like I've played enough games on Pantheon where that has happened. But anyways, let's shift gears a little bit. What is your involvement with the sweaty scene, and how can other players get into that? And to clarify, the sweaty scene being forcing the matchmaking to put two teams against each other who want to play against each other. Have you been doing that a lot?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I do that all the time. It's so much fun. I think sweaties have this kind of weird aura where people think that they're these kind of like mystical things like unicorns, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know about that. I don't think I'm ready for that." You know what I mean? It's like it's so majestic and beautiful and maybe deadly. I can't get in there. What the hell am I smoking? But the thing about sweaties is that they're a lot of fun. They're not as intimidating as you may potentially make them out to be. I have had some of the most fun games I've ever played in Destiny in sweaties with people who I've known for a long time, with people who I've just met that week or that day, and even when I'm getting my ass kicked sometimes, I still have a really great time. You know, sometimes you have games where you do really well in a sweaty and you're like, oh, hell yeah, I'm doing awesome. But then sometimes you play sweaties with people who, I mean, not that you've underestimated them, but, you know, sometimes I go post on LFG sites looking for people to play with, and, you know, you get some random team in and they play you and you're like, wow, these guys are really freaking good. I'm getting knocked around right now. But you're just having fun because you're playing with friends and everyone is there to help each other improve. No one's there, for the most part, no one is there to pick on you or go to the post-game lobby and be like, wow, you really suck. I don't want to play with you anymore. I mean, for the most part, from what I've seen, the sweaty community is really friendly. We want to help you improve. We want to improve. We just want to have good games.
You mentioned posting on an LFG site, you know, to kind of take that first step. Let's say it's just me and maybe a friend of mine. You know, we don't have enough to put together, you know, a full skirmish game ourselves. How do you take that first step? How do you kind of get your foot in the door into getting into that culture? I mean, it's not like there's an official website or a centralized place where you can find people to play with. How does it start?
That is kind of a tricky question. I don't know how other people did, but for me, it was just kind of a couple of my friends had heard about it and they got into the scene and then they kind of brought me in. It was kind of like referring a friend. If you search around, I know there's not a ton of dedicated places where you can go and just be like, oh yeah, we'll set up a match here. But if you do search around and if you're vigilant, keep your eyes open, you can find stuff. I actually found on the Crucible Playbook subreddit, some random user had put together a skirmish league, which I'm actually in right now. I'd never signed up for a skirmish league before. I thought that was a really cool idea, and he just kind of organized it all himself. And we put together a team, and we decided we want to join in. And it's still going on right now. It's been going on for about 6 or 7 weeks, I want to say. And I've met a bunch of really awesome people. We've had a bunch of really great games. It's just a ton of fun. And I will say that it is a little difficult to get your foot in the door when you're trying to get into, you know, quote, the world of sweaties. That's what you want to call it. But once you actually get in there, once you meet people who are kind of like-minded like you, it just becomes, it's a snowball effect. It's just so easy. All you have to do is just get your foot in the door, And when you do, it's all downhill from there in a good way.
Yeah, it's a thing where if you've got 5 other friends, you guys can go play 3v3s and it's going to be fun. And what we like to do is we play like 3 serious games where we're trying hard, we're doing call outs, we're practicing our skills. And then after that, we just switch to sidearms only, or, no supers, no secondary or something like that. Just do fun things like No Land Beyond games. And that's...
Those games are awesome.
Right. It's such a blast. So it's definitely something that, anyone can be good at Crucible. Anyone can do sweaties and play games with their friends.
Yeah.
Well, I have to give you a bit of congratulations for your world record game in zone control.
Oh, thank you.
A record-setting number of kills in a game mode where kills don't matter.
It was
Impressive all the same.
Yeah, that was a crazy
Thank you.
game.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Well, you know how I got that many kills, right?
How's that?
Well, it's because I listened to your podcast last week. Deej told me about those raisins. I just
there you
popped
go.
like 100 of those bad boys.
It's that 20% weapon buff, whatever that means.
Exactly. Which stacks, apparently.
If you just think in game, you're just pouring raisins down the barrel of your gun. Makes the bullets go better.
But thank you for that. That was a fun game. And I was actually kind of hesitant to post that footage anywhere, even though, you could look at it and you're like, wow, that's crazy awesome. But just because I was like, God, I'm such an ass, because I have a world record, apparently, in a game type where kills, quote, don't matter. Kills still do matter in zone control, because, you have to push the enemy back. You got to make sure they're all spending more time dead than they are taking your zones. But in terms of a numeric difference, there's no way that the kills actually directly affect the score. So I kind of felt like a horse's ass that I had this amazing game with such a high kill count in a game of zone control. But at the same time, I felt like it was something that people should see, because it's interesting to see someone play in that way. And especially around that time, I had just put together my guide for the Sunbreaker Titan. And I thought to myself, okay, even though I didn't win the game, which made me feel like even a bigger douche, but just the fact that this is like proof, and I know that, proof is in no short supply these days of how damn good the Sunbreaker is, but this is like really good footage just to show people who are thinking about making a Sunbreaker Titan just how offensively capable it is.
It must have been really, really great for the other team to see the kill feed and be like, we won! We didn't get 65 kills, but we still pulled through, guys.
Oh, God, yeah.
I think, and give yourself some credit, too, because, there's some strengths in subclasses these days, but watching that game, you can tell, like you're saying earlier, you're not rushing into things, you're patient. You sit on B and kind of fall back with Mida whenever you need to. I was sort of expecting to open up and see this, blink shotgun pub stomp and go warrior gang. I can't even say that word. Just like this crazy all out attack, but it's not really that. You wait, you get the kills when they come to you. You have setups and things like that. So there's real skills applied, and it's not just this absurd, well, clearly I'm the fastest player on the map and no one else has the right guns equipped, that kind of lucky scenario that sometimes happens. So it was a good game.
Oh, thank you. And, even though I did lose, I just kind of thought, well, how can I turn this into something that people would want to see or kind of read about? So I decided I was going to comb through the footage, which is what I did, yesterday and today. And I'm just going to highlight every mistake that I think I made in that specific game type and the way that I was playing. So even though I ended up losing the match, people can still watch a match with a crazy amount of kills, but then still read on Crucible Playbook. It's like, oh, well, you could have done this to improve. You could have done this to maybe change the output of the game a little bit. So I think that just kind of analyzing that footage and just summing up the potential mistakes that I thought I saw could be helpful for the people on Crucible Playbook, because there's always a silver lining.
Well, I guess that's a testament to mastery as you defined it, because you took a world record-setting game and you managed to lose it, and then you tore your gameplay apart in front of all of us on Crucible Playbook to make it better. So
Exactly.
that's a beautiful thing.
I thought so.
Cool. Well, it's been great having you on the show. I would encourage anyone to just swing by Crucible Playbook, or even just check out some of these Reddit posts that Fallout's made. The level of detail, in particular, the way you use GIFs to kind of illustrate things so we don't necessarily have to watch the whole video. Just fantastic. But for people who want to learn more about what you're putting out into the world, where can people find you?
People could find me primarily on YouTube. If you just want to go to youtube.com/FalloutPlays, you'll find me right there. I'm trying to post videos on a more frequent basis these days, but my unofficial mantra for YouTube videos is kind of like quality over quantity. But I also stream a little bit, usually actually on YouTube Gaming lately. I know a lot of the big Destiny people are streaming on Twitch, and that's awesome. For me, I usually stream on YouTube Gaming. And you can follow me on Twitter too, on at Fallout_plays. And I have to put the underscore in there because some jerkwad took Fallout Plays apparently years ago, which is super news for me. But yeah, message me on Twitter or send me a message on YouTube on any of my videos. I read all my comments, even though it takes me a long time. And I'm willing to play with anybody. If you want to play, if you want to do matchmaking, you want to do sweaties, you want to do whatever, just message me.
Sounds like a plan.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Yar, special thanks to our guest, Shitbeard the Pirate, a.k.a. Fallout Plays.
Arrgh, let's sail on to the shores of time. Straight ahead, laddies.
Pop. Beep boop pop.
Swain, we're doing pirates now.
Come on, we've switched the bit. It's pirate time.
That was opening bit. This be different.
Thank you for stopping by. As always, you can find us on the space internet at Crucible Radio. Thank you for listening.
I say we make him walk the plank.
Oh, the salt water be rusting him to bits.
Be gone, Swainbot.
Oh wait, I can find you a girlfriend. Let me live.
Don't play me like that, Swainbot. You're only messing with me now. We be the only pirates to program a robot.